Welcome back, guys. IDGT here to discuss some of the best cards of Mythical Island set, and their impact. This set has brought some much-needed change to the dreadful flip RNG, and gives players far more control over matches. There's quite a few cards that have made some huge impacts for multiple deck builds. We'll touch on the biggest ones today, as well as the decks that show their strengths. We'll also discuss the best decks that we feel require less luck and are most consistent. I'm sure many noticed that we don't have the Celebi EX with superior cards shown, and we won't touch on this deck at all. This deck has been gone over far too much already. The first card we'll focus on is Druddigon. This card pairs very well with all Stage 2 decks, making some new cards and even older decks much more versatile and earning a place in the meta. The first deck pairing with Druddigon will be Golem. We'll also be using the new Golem and Graveler from Mythical Island. This Golem is much better than the one from Genetic Apex. It does less damage than the Genetic Apex variation, but essentially has more HP with Guard Press, allowing it to take 30 less damage. It also does no damage to self. You can also run Hitmonlee in this deck for quick damage and easier setup for Golem later on. You can drop the Sabrina card for the Hitmonlee if you want to run it. Hitmonlee works very well to take out Magikarp before it can build to Gyarados. Our next deck featuring Druddigon will also feature another newcomer from Mythical Island, Mew Ex. We use Mew Ex in quite a few decks for a number of reasons. It's a great counter to Mewtwo decks, which was generally the downside to some of these Stage 2 decks. They were not able to get going fast enough to counter the Mewtwo decks. Now, if you notice your opponent is running a Psychic deck, you can have Mew in the active to counter them quicker than they can set up. We also run a Budding Explorer with this deck, so we can use Mew Ex to tank if necessary, while getting Gengar up and running. For most decks with Druddigon, we are not worried about its energy and turn it off while building the decks. Mythical Slab is another new card that is featured in this deck. This card is great to stage build quickly and help draw the cards you need. Sometimes you may not want to use this card right away, especially when you're searching for a supporter card like Professor's Research or Giovanni, as it will discard these cards from the top of your deck. You can also run Sigilif in place of the Sabrina or a Giovanni if you want more chances to build quickly. Using Spike Draw will draw a card each time you use it in your active. If you run Sigilif, you can also replace one leaf for 1 X speed. Our next deck will feature Gyarados Ex, paired with Starmie EX and Vaporeon. This deck is probably one of the most versatile and easiest to move around and set up. In some scenarios, it takes a bit of thinking to ensure you will have enough energy to apply to the next card with Vaporeon's Washout. But the possibilities with this deck are numerous. We also run Giovanni with this deck, just in case we come across Mewtwo decks. You have a few choices of which Eevee you prefer to run with this deck. Mythical Island Eevee gives a chance of big damage potential with continuous steps, but needs the flip RNG. Or you can run the Eevee from Genetic Apex that gives guaranteed damage with Tackle. We also have a new option this week with the Eevee coming from the promo A cards, which could work better in a few situations. Having Growl will give players the chance to have more turns in the active with this card in case of a bad lead, and giving additional time to draw things you need. We run Misty with this deck because occasionally you can get Gyarados up and running early, and Misty can end a match quickly. This deck doesn't need Misty to do well like other water decks before Mythical Island. Vaporeon has really opened up the potential for many other water decks too. We also will throw Articuno in when we want a bit of variety. It can paralyze the opponent when you're on a bad run, and give more time to draw the cards you need. Our next deck is another one that features Druddigon. This card really allows so many Stage 2 decks to flourish. And now, with the Leaf Supporter card, it ensures that there's no wasted energy when moving your tank from the active if you get your Stage 2 running early. With this deck, we will be running water and fire energy, so you can use Druddigon to attack. The 2 Giovanni cards will help it take out your opponent's Druddigon, as most are using similar strategies with Druddigon. Pidgeot Ex is such a great closer, and really causes your opponent to think before filling their bench. It also shows the Pokemon Flute item card's potential. Just make sure that your opponent has a basic card in their discard pile before attempting to play it. We also run Tauros with this deck to help with damage output while waiting to build on the bench. But Mew Ex also fills the same similar role if you want something different or prefer this card. Let's take a look at them in action. final deck will feature Melmetal. This is probably our favorite deck currently, and does pretty well overall. It's quite consistent now and can deal with the decks that gave it problems before because of the help from Mew Ex. This is another deck that also features Druddigon. We're running one blue here because it helps Melmetal survive an attack from Mew Ex that's using Psydrive. Also a budding Explorer to give us more options with Mew. 3 cards that are consistent with most decks since Mythical Island release are Mew Ex, Druddigon, and Leaf. These cards are mostly staples to the meta now and have really shaken up the old 2 or 3 decks that dominated the game prior. So, there you have it. These are the decks we've been using and consistently winning with less flip RNG. Try them out and let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you real soon with more Pokemon TCG Pocket.